Well guys, welcome back. I know it's been a while since I've been in the last video, but at it again with the dive locker and a group called Porpoise Bay Charters. And we are out doing a place called the Skookumchuk Narrows, which is not too far north of Vancouver. It's actually a pretty short distance compared to some of the other trips I've done. But we've just arrived about 10 minutes ago, had a bit of a tour, which I'll give you guys on my own. And the reason I didn't do any of the trip up here was because it was a really twisty, windy road, and I was just fighting off the motion sickness, so I wasn't really in any shape to do any video. But first of all, this is where I'm staying tonight. It's a yurt, and I'll give you guys a bit of a tour of it. Okay, so here she is. And if you look inside, it's actually quite nice. So I'll open the door. Here we go. And I get this all to myself tonight. So, dive locker does not disappoint when the places they find. This is a lot more than I was expecting. Okay, looks like I'll have to cut the tour short and show you guys later, because we are rushing off to do our checkout dive. We have to do it now because it's about 3:30 in the afternoon right now, and we're going to run out of light otherwise, and a night dive checkout sounds a bit weird, so I'll meet you down there. Oh, by the way, yes, I have titled this video regarding the controversy between whether or not you should use a Drysuit for buoyancy. I will be giving that information after the checkout dive because time has just made it shake out that way, so that will be nearer to the end of the video. Alright, I gotta get down there and get myself changed. Whew. Okay, suited up, as you can see.
What's happening?
There's Tess again, there she is. Yeah, we're on the boat. Tess's hair is on my face now. Teona's back again, there she is. Tim is hiding in the corner, he ran away. What else have we got?
You can use
Keith.
Yes, it's equivalent to about 5 ounces.
Manuel, he goes by Manuel. What's his name? Aaron? Aaron, I don't remember the name.
That's why
It's Aaron. So, that's the crew for the weekend, so. Yeah, as usual, if you can spot them underwater, I'll give you a thumbs up. And we're heading out to do our test dive, as I think I said earlier, but next thing you should see is us jumping in the water. Okay guys, I thought I should probably get on with telling you about the Drysuit and using it as a buoyancy control device, because I've had some comments in previous videos that have said that it's wrong to use a BCD as a buoyancy control device, and I've gone through and done a bit of research about it, and I thought I'd share what I've come up with in terms of pros and cons of using a BCD or a Drysuit, or some combination of both when you're cold water diving. And so I've got about 4 different pieces I want to go over. Part 1, I think, here will be a combination of your trim and your range of motion, or freedom to move about if you're using a Drysuit for buoyancy. So, as you're probably aware, but if you're not, a Drysuit covers you from the tips of your toes all the way up to about your neck, and that means that the air can go pretty much anywhere in that suit from that range that I just mentioned. So what that means is if you put too much air into the suit, you can puff up like a big marshmallow, and what that will do obviously is your range of motion will be hindered because you're trying to move about with a big pile of air in your suit. And the other bit is what's called your trim. And now what your trim is, if you don't know, is it's basically your posture, your position in the water, and how easily you can move through it. It's called hydrodynamics, really, but basically when you're going through the water, you want to have as little resistance as you're moving through the water, as little drag. And again, when you're puffed up like a big balloon, you have more surface area that's trying to move through the water, and that'll be the case again. You'll be slowed down, and it'll be a little bit more difficult. So in this respect, I could definitely see this as a con if you're going to be using a Drysuit for buoyancy. One thing though that I will say, this is the second point, is that if I'm going to be, I personally am still using a Drysuit primarily for buoyancy. I'm experimenting with the BCD, but one thing I found, at least for a beginner when I was learning, was it was much easier to get used to a Drysuit for buoyancy using using the Drysuit, sorry. Because buoyancy in cold water is a lot more particular. You float up a lot faster, so you've got to be a lot more on it. And I just found, and I think most PADI instructors generally find it's easier, at least they did with me, that it's easier to teach you to get used to using the Drysuit, managing your buoyancy, getting used to how the air moves about in that suit, and then I think as you get more experienced, you slowly start using the BCD and integrating and make the switch over gradually. But I mean, that's basically the point 2. So I think I would say it's a pro for the Drysuit is that it's good for beginners. But on to point 3, I guess, would be if you're getting onto more advanced diving. So if you're doing like 2-tank diving or tech diving, you definitely will have to use the BCD, because when you're using a BCD, your chest area is basically where the air gets trapped when you put the air in there, and that's a lot easier to manage than, like I said, the suit that I've already talked about. And what happens when you have 2 tanks on your back is you've got a lot of weight on top of you, and you've got this big pocket of air that you're creating on the bottom with the Drysuit. And what ends up happening in the water is, physics tries to flip you back over so that the air is on top. And you really don't want that. So when you're in more technical type of diving, 2-tank or tech diving, that's when you definitely need to be using a BCD to keep that air in a position where you can control it better. Now there's 2 other minor points. One I'll bring up is insulation, and that is the point of the Drysuit, is the air in the suit is supposed to create an air barrier and keep you a bit warmer. So one little trade-off, I'll say, it's not really a pro or a con, it depends on the amount you use, so it's touch and go, is that if you're using the BCD and you don't put enough air in, you might be a bit colder. So you can switch back and forth, but with the mixture in the 2 systems, but when you have more air in the suit, you have more insulation, so you'd be warmer. So what I'm saying is when you're on the colder dives, you may want more air in the suit rather than the BCD, just to keep warmer. We're talking more extreme dives when you're, say, under 5 degrees Celsius. Above that, I don't think it's a big issue, but that's one to bring up. Overall, like I said, I think you've kind of got my opinion on this. When you're doing a Drysuit diving, when you're getting used to it, getting started out, I do recommend, I do agree with, because I recommend, the Drysuit as the first and only one to start with. But my personal opinion after that is, you know, once you're used to your buoyancy in the water with the Drysuit, then you really do want to switch, because again, your control of your buoyancy with a BCD is vastly superior. So hopefully this won't upset the diving community too much. Like I said, it's just my goal here wasn't to start a big controversy. I'm just trying to put a consolidated list of pros and cons together for you guys on whether or not you think you should be using your Drysuit for buoyancy, because ultimately when you're in the water, no one's down there with you who's going to force you to use one or the other. There's no diving police, and it is going to be a personal preference. So with that said, guys, I'm going to wrap this video up. Thanks very much for watching. I hope this was a bit helpful. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and I will see you in tomorrow's video. Thanks very much for watching, guys. Bye-bye for now.